Hi, everybody. This is Lisa Colon DeLay, and you're listening to the Spark My Muse podcast. This is Soul School number, I can't even tell you because it's been a while. I had nasal surgery a couple weeks ago, and this is my first time back. You might still notice something off with my voice because my nose is still healing. It's swollen. So what I wanted to talk about today was something that I feel I've confronted on this downtime that I've had. I finished my book, and if you're watching the video, you'll see a little picture of the cover, The Way of the Desert Elders. This has been a book that's been years in the making, from dreaming it up to doing the outline to speaking with an agent and then finding a book deal, then getting the book deal done, and all the intricacies and nuances that come along with that. And since it's been finished, and it's coming out in January, but essentially all the work for it is done except for promotional work, I've had time to think, and I've also been recovering from surgery. And what I noticed is even though I wrote this spiritual book, stuff still comes up. I still have to work on things. I'm not healed fully. I'm not there. And I know that's fine, but sometimes it can be discouraging. And I'm sure that many of you out there find times of discouragement too when you've had a victory of some kind or you're going along, and then sometimes you get really discouraged. So I wanted to look into this a little more deeply, and I wanted to talk about what happens when you find an emotional corpse. And I'll get into what that means as I define it more specifically soon. Emotional corpse, it's just one of the things I've learned about the process of healing. It's this idea that it's never done. So in my book, The Way of the Desert Elders, I speak in there about the desert fathers and mothers of the 300 to 600s AD. And they had vices and virtues, and they had temptations, and they had certain ways for finding more spiritual wholeness. And just because I found all that out and I applied things about it to my life, it doesn't mean that my suffering is over. It doesn't mean my mistakes are over. And sometimes I've felt worse than I have ever felt before in a certain respect. As I've continued to be open to discovery and to ways to heal, I've had to be kind of honest in new ways about my buried, unseen, and undealt with pain. And this is the kind of pain that's ordinary for us. Because it's unseen and it's really repressed, that's old Freudian language, but buried and we're not aware of it, it comes out in other ways. It comes out in ways you don't think of. And for some of us more than others, it'll come out with projection, with seeing things we don't like in other people and thinking that actually isn't sourced in ourselves. So it could be hurt, anger, sadness, grief, disappointment, and we can be irritated by things we see in others, flaws we see in our leaders or our relatives. And so if you're struggling, I hope you'll follow along as I unpack this more and we can forge a better future for ourselves together. I know that we're in a climate now where things feel chaotic. I really, truly feel like democracy is in the balance. And so I know this is part of buried pain. Buried pain doesn't get the attention it deserves. It stays offline, and we really don't know how bad it is until it's gotten in the way of us and troubled us in various kinds of ways. The problem for me in my circles and who I am friends with is that in religious circles, and I know Christian ones from my experience, is that we actually, instead of dealing with it, we learn to bypass it and bury it better. We learn to bury what we're feeling. And this is kind of disturbing because it doesn't really allow us to find what we need. It doesn't really allow us to move on in spiritual maturity. And if you know anything about me, you know that spiritual formation is my jam. It's ways of feeling more alive, more settled, more whole, and able to be with others in better ways. But what happens is that our beliefs don't matter that much. If we're unconsciously using our beliefs or our religion or our dogma or our political leanings to avoid feeling our most authentic, and sometimes chaotic, and sometimes uncomfortable feelings. These are feelings that are so difficult to deal with. We push them down deep into our bodies and out of our awareness, out of our conscious knowing. We don't know that we operate out of those things anymore. Instead, we find ourselves with headaches or chronic pain or other issues like digestion issues. We all learned very early on that to feel loved or accepted or safe and to get what we needed, some things could not be expressed, and maybe we didn't even know how to express them. Maybe they were sort of offline and language wasn't available to us to be able to express what we're actually feeling. And maybe there wasn't space to feel all those things because we had big feelings. But whatever the case was, we were never really metabolizing what we felt. And that's what repression is. It's the inability to feel feelings, shove them down beyond our conscious awareness. So for some of us, maybe we felt too much, too big, our feelings were too big, or maybe they were too confusing. Maybe things happened that were related to suffering that happened in too short a time, or maybe they happened before we were old enough to know that we would actually be okay no matter what happened. One way or another, we would come out in one piece, more or less. And so what happens, I think, is that like a dead body that can't be dealt with, we bury that as best we could with our little silly tools. And we try to find control or avoid any fallout for all these feelings. And all these feelings that are buried, they do come back, but they come back as the undead, as zombies. And we see the problems we are unaware of in ourselves presented in others. We hate it. We hate how immature and juvenile the president is, for instance. And yet he has been avoiding his feelings of hurt since as long as he can remember, before he can even remember. And so have we. We try to soothe ourselves or we try to fight it. And we all deal with this as human beings who have a lot of emotions and thoughts that are interconnected. We may not even sense it, but this emotional corpse creates all kinds of problems. Some of the problems are issues we hope to deal with, and through embracing a belief system, perhaps, spirituality, mindfulness, a political perspective, or maybe just by being good or by helping others or soothing others in some way, we attempt to keep the corpse buried, though we don't even know that there's a corpse at all. So this corpse makes itself known directly, but not overtly, covertly. It pops up as discomfort with other people, wanting to change other people. It pops up as anxiety or depression and various forms of addiction. And that goes from food, alcohol, street drugs, to even just novelty, addiction to novelty, working too hard, workaholism, not resting, or maybe relationships. Maybe we hope to find what we need in certain kinds of friendships or romantic relationships or affairs. And our different attempts to control our lives is what we're doing. We're doing all we can to try to control our lives and control fear from popping up and looking differently than just fear. So as we're able to slow down a bit and let whatever big and scary emotions emerge, maybe deep-seated ones from long, long ago, when we're able to sit with them maturely, we can start to see that what was buried doesn't need to keep haunting us. We can become more authentic because we are able to feel what we really feel and express what we need to express. And I don't mean honesty, like, let me give you a piece of my mind. I'm going to just blow everything out of the water as you hear it. But that is also a coping mechanism that can happen too. But I mean feeling the things that are very uncomfortable for us to feel. So I want to know if you're tracking with what I'm saying. Maybe this makes no sense to you, or maybe what I'm saying is sort of, you're hearing it for the first time in a new way and realizing that it's part of your story too. So I want to know what emotions might be buried or unseen or undealt with for you? What do you feel you're protecting yourself from? Has something lately in the news come out that has made you feel uncomfortable? That usually relates to your own buried emotions, that corpse you've hidden, hoping no one will find it, and you've forgotten that a corpse is even there. So maybe it's something worrisome, fearful, confusing, or just unexpressed. What is it for you? I'd like to hear from you, and I hope to make resources and have them upcoming to make this easier, this whole process easier, but I do need your input. So are you restless, upset, irritated? What do you crave? What do you deeply crave the most? And do you feel discontent? All these things actually point to more that we can bring back online and lessen our suffering in really substantial ways. And that's what I'm beginning to look into more, and I hope you'll come with me, follow me, subscribe, stay tuned for more. Hope to speak with you soon.